For all of us that fake all day long, that we're so happy and we're so patient and we're so calm and we're so kind, it's a great affirmation. It's only an affirmation. It's encouraging you to keep doing it even more because actually you're changing. The mask becomes the man. The levush becomes you. And then the Rebbe is even saying that your intellect changes if you're saying wise words. What's more wise than Torah? That is like mind-boggling. This mimer is from Shabbos, HaMoed, Sukkos, from Tufshin Chaf Aleph, 1961. And the mimer is based on a mimer of the Alter Rebbe, on the pasuk V'lo Yikanaf Od Morecha, that in the times of Mashiach, as Yeshaya says, your teacher, Eibishter, God, will no longer be concealed. So the Alter Rebbe says, what does this mean? Hashem will no longer be concealed. But nowadays there are levushim, there are garments. And garments can dress someone up and conceal who they really are. And the Alter Rebbe gives two mishalim for this concept. He says you could have a person who's a fool, but he can quote very wise words. Like he's parroting. You know, nowadays everyone does that. They listen to, I don't know, a podcast, and then they're the world's experts on whatever, you know. They listen to a shiur and they're the world's experts on whatever. So they're just parroting someone else's smart ideas. Innately, they're a fool. But they could say smart things and maybe even fool someone to think they're smart. Or you have a person who's innately cruel, but they could do something that looks kind, a kind act, and they could fool people to think they're kind. But really, they're cruel. They're just dressed up in kind garments. So the Alter Rebbe says that's what garments do. Garments conceal what's really underneath. And as we see from the examples of the Alter Rebbe, garments can really pretty up what's underneath. Cruel can be kind, foolish can be smart. Garments can dress up who you really are. And then the Alter Rebbe says there's a very deep inyan in this. This is a very deep inyan. And then the Alter Rebbe says, and by Mashiach, v'lo yikanaf od morecha, there won't be any garments. There won't be any need for any concealment. There won't be any need to pretty anything up. Here, you know, Morecha, Hashem, as your teacher, or as it is in our own neshamos, our midos and our moichin, don't need any concealment. They'll be so pure and refined who we are, what's going on the inside, or obviously the Eibishter is completely pure. We'll get it straight without any garments obscuring what's really going on. So that's a mimer of the Alter Rebbe. The Rebbe comments on this and says, well, why does the Alter Rebbe bring two mishalim? One from this foolish person who's saying smart words, and one from this cruel person who's doing kind acts. I mean, it's a very simple point, you know, the mask and the man, and we all understand it, so you don't need two examples. And the Rebbe says, no, it's very precise, because inside ourselves, we have these two dimensions. We have our midos and we have our moichin. And the example of the cruel person who's dressing himself up and concealing who he is by being kind is a reflection of the midos. And the fool who's spouting smart words is a reflection of the moichin. And in both of these dimensions, midos and moichin, we have garments. And the garments pretty up what's really going on. But the Rebbe says, but this is really something very deep going on here. Because we know that innately we cannot transform our midos. The essence core evil of our midos, as the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, you can't really transform his midos. And how much more so we can't transform our moichin, right? That's the whole idea of now we only got 7 out of the 10 nations. By Mashiach, we'll get all 10. Why? Because the 3 nations of the Keni, Knizi, Kadmoni were taken by Edom, Moab, and Ammon. Well, why didn't we get them? Well, if you're learning Nigla, I don't know. We had to, Dervaila, I don't know. Not really a good reason. But Chassidus says, no, there's a very good reason. Because the 10 nations symbolize the evil of the midos and the moichin. And the evil of the midos, it's hard, but we can transform. Those are the 7 nations we got. But the evil of the moichin, the Keni, Knizi, and Kadmoni, we can't touch that till Mashiach. So that's why it was given over to Edom, Moab, and Ammon. You could say, whatever you could say. In the end of the day, it's klipa. It's klipa of moichin. And klipa of moichin we cannot transform. When will we get it? When can we access it? Mashiach, when the evil's gone. So that's what we understand classically. But the Rebbe says, the Alter Rebbe is saying, there's a very deep power of garments. Now, we deal with garments all day long because we're not dealing with our soul directly or even our animal soul directly. We have the garments, machshava, dibra, ma'aseh, thought, speech, and deed. What are we seeing from these two mishalim of the foolish person who's spouting the smart words or the cruel person who's doing the kind acts? As the Alter Rebbe says, the garments, they're not just obscuring, they're making more pretty. They're beautifying. They're enhancing, we might say. They're refining what's really going on underneath. That's the deep power of levushim. Meaning, if you just learn the mimer of the Alter Rebbe and you learn these two mishalim of the Alter Rebbe, it seems that the Alter Rebbe is saying, this is fake. He's a fool. He's saying smart words, and he's still a fool. Maybe he fooled you. Maybe he didn't. But he's a fool spouting smart words. He's a cruel person doing something nice. Maybe he fooled you. Maybe you think he's a nice person. Maybe he didn't fool you. Maybe you know he's a mean person. But in the end of the day, it's not him. He is a cruel person doing something nice. He is a foolish person saying something smart. But then the Alter Rebbe says, but there's a very deep inyan here. And then he doesn't explain that deep inyan. The Rebbe is explaining that deep inyan. The Rebbe says the deep inyan is, it's not a fake out. It's not a fooling you. The mask and the man, the mask does change the man. The mask refines the man. It's not that the mask beautifies the man because you don't see how ugly he really is. The mask changes the inner appearance of the man. So when you take off the mask, you have a beautiful man. That's what our levushim do. We deal with this all day long. All day long, we can act patient when we are so impatient. We can act calm when we are so upset. I mean, we do. We do things all day long that are masks, that are pretty masks, that are not us. We're doing things that are not us. We're much uglier inside. And this is a very good thing. As we wear the mask, it changes us. Hi, Shani. I'll just give a brief overview. It's a very short mimer of the Rebbe, of Shabbos, Chol, HaMoed, Sukkos. And the Rebbe is talking here about a mimer of the Alter Rebbe, where the Alter Rebbe is speaking of garments and saying how garments obscure and can make the person seem prettier than they are. And the Alter Rebbe says there's a very deep inyan in this. But the Alter Rebbe doesn't say what the deep inyan is. And the Rebbe is explaining this deep inyan and saying that the deep inyan is, it doesn't have to be a fake out. When we wear masks, when we use levushim, when we use garments, and when the garments we're using are better, nicer, calmer, happier, sweeter, more spiritual than who we are, the garments change us, especially if we're very consistently wearing them. I love this point because I think it's so much the reality of our existence. You know, we all struggle with our base nature, and then sometimes, okay, we just pretend we're nicer than we are. We pretend we're kinder. We pretend we're more patient. We pretend we're interested when we totally are not. And the Rebbe is saying that's a great thing. Not just great because you're not losing it, but it's a great because you're changing yourself. When I learned this mimer, one of the times I learned this mimer, I really had this deep, like, epiphany moment, you know, one of those ahas, thinking of my son Beryl. And I was like, wow, because I stick to this point very much, that every day I have him say a lot of holy words. Every day he says the 12 psukim. And that could sometimes be not so easy, but I really push and I really have him every single day say the 12 psukim. After I was learning the mimer, I said to myself, wow, I wonder if that's why he's so much more high functioning than seemingly he should be. Because of what the Rebbe is saying here in this mimer, that as you say wise words, it changes you. Well, there's nothing wiser than Torah. So as you say the brilliant words of Torah day after day after day, you're a fool. But you're saying the most brilliant words possible. You're saying the words of Torah. That changes you. And the Rebbe literally says this in the Mimer. No, the Rebbe doesn't quote my son. But the Rebbe literally says this idea that as you're saying wise words, I mean, to say, in other words, to say you're not a nice person. Let's be honest. You're mean, you're cheap, you're self-centered, you're egotistical, whatever names you want to call yourself. But you're a good faker. So you're mean, but you fake you're nice. You're egotistical, but you fake you have bittul. You're selfish and you fake you're selfless. We can understand that if you fake these things consistently enough and long enough, you would change. I mean, that makes sense. You're a mean person, but you keep acting nice. Eventually it trickles inside. You're an impatient person and you keep acting patient. You become patient. That, like, we can sort of see. But to say you're not smart, you're really not smart, but you're going to keep saying wise words, and it will change the faculty of your intellect. We'd say that makes no sense. But the Rebbe says it. That when the Alter Rebbe is giving these two, the Alter Rebbe gave two mishalim, two examples. The foolish person who says wise words, the cruel person who does kind acts. And they're equal, meaning the same way the cruel person will change if he keeps acting kindly, the fool will change if he keeps saying wise words. Leah, were you going to add something?
Yeah, thanks. It's interesting because it's like we can rewire our brain with our behavior, and that's the fake it till you make it thing. Or when we're around people who are healthy, then we get their vibes, and then we start acting like them, and whatever we're exposed to, and that's what's changing us. But that second point, it's like, but then there's the makeup of the brain, and how does that change? And that's very interesting.
Yes, I think it's unbelievable. And yet, literally, it's not like I'm just being inspired and adding. It's literally what the Rebbe says here. Hine afilu shoite, ve'afilu shoite gadol, ayidei shechoizer harbe al divrei chacham gadol, hare soif halavushim shem divrei harav, hoilim bo shinoi hamahus. There's an essence change in his intellect. Ad shenefach lios chacham. And that's like, how? The Rebbe says this is the deep power of Avushim. So I think this is just such a practical mimer. Yes, this is a mimer, but it's so practical because, first of all, for all of us that fake all day long, that we're so happy and we're so patient and we're so calm and we're so kind, it's a great affirmation. It's only an affirmation. It's encouraging you to keep doing it even more because actually you're changing. The mask becomes the man. The lavush becomes you. And then the Rebbe is even saying that your intellect changes if you're saying wise words. What's more wise than Torah? That is like mind-boggling. And I think both of these points are a deep lesson in chinuch of our own children. Meaning, I'm talking about being mechanech myself. It's not like, well, if you love me, just accept me how I am, and I want all my, issues to be all out there in your face because, hey, if you love me, you're accepting me. We're saying, we love you, so therefore we want to help you change. There's actually Feuerstein. He was a cognitive psychiatrist who worked with children traumatized by the Holocaust, with soldiers harmed in the wars, did a lot of work with Down syndrome children and adults, and he wrote many books. I didn't read his books. I'm not pretending here, but I love the title of one of his books. It's a book, about helping children, and the title is "If You Love Me, Don't Accept Me as I Am," and it's just such a powerful message there. Love me. If you really love me, help me change. Help me grow. Help me be better than I am naturally. Help me get past my limitations. And of course, he's talking on a psychological level, and the Rebbe's going far deeper because the Rebbe's saying we all have this power, and it's in our levushim. It's in the garments of our soul. It's in how we act, how we pretend we are. So we should always strive to pretend far nicer, far better, far kinder, far more patient, far smarter. And if we can pretend consistently enough, it's going to be tremendous help.
Then what's the difference between our levushim and our etzem? How do you know? Like there's like at what point there's hergel nasa tevasheni, and it's like it's a fine line, isn't it?
So what the Rebbe is saying, and again, that's why the more you think about this, the crazier this idea is. Just like in Tanya, we bring out this point on the levush versus the etzem. And obviously, intuitively, we would all say, well, the etzem is much more important than the levush. It's only a levush. But as Tanya points out, not necessarily. Not necessarily. When our neshama is dressed in the garments of Torah mitzvahs, our neshama changes. Now, again, that doesn't make much sense. Your clothing shouldn't, in essence, change you. I mean, it's a superficial, it's external. Obviously, you're much more important than your clothing. Your clothing change. You are you. But yet, and it's a beneficial point, when the neshama is dressed in garments of Torah, she changes. She's enhanced. She's raised to that level, and that's a good thing. That's why it's kedai to Torah mitzvahs. So
like when we dress fancy, we want to behave fancy, and we dress not so fancy, we walk around.
Right. When we allow ourselves to be comfortably schlumpy, yes, there's always that discussion of like, come on, you just want to be comfortable, and we do want to be comfortable, and then like when you dress like a schlump, you start feeling like a schlump. So you got to find that like, fine line of like comfortable put together,
Right. Like I work from home, so I notice that if I put on socks and shoes, then I feel like I can start working. Until then, I'm like, nah.
It's true. It's true.
It affects the brain. It like, affects us. Oh, we're serious now.
Okay, get to business, Journey. Start working. Wear your shoes.
Yeah.
It's true, and it's sort of like this is an incredible thing the Rebbe is saying here, because he's talking from a spiritual perspective. And he's saying from a spiritual perspective, your neshama changes because of the lavush. You can say my neshama is pure, obviously my neshama is godly. But the dark areas or the weak areas, or I mean, probably neither of those are correct terms for our neshama. So the not developed areas. Because the Rebbe is not saying here, I noticed that, the Rebbe is not saying your nefesh abahami, the Rebbe is talking about your neshama. Sheyesh b'koichem l'shanos es koichos hanefesh ves mohus hanefesh. That's insane. The levushim, in other words, if I would say, when you put on pretty garments, you're going to dress up and ultimately change your nefesh habahami, that's logical in my brain. Your nefesh habahami is making you a self-centered, cheap person. And when you act kind and expansive and generous and sensitive and thoughtful enough times, your nefesh habahami changed. The Rebbe is going beyond that. The Rebbe is saying the neshama. And again, well, the levushim of my neshama are far less powerful than my neshama. True, on a certain level. But there's another level, and that's what's so beautiful about Chassidus. There's another level, another dimension, where the levushim have a certain, as the Alter Rebbe calls it, there's a deep inyan here. That's what the Alter Rebbe said. There's a deep inyan. And the Rebbe says that deep inyan means there's a deep koyach. There's a deep koyach Hashem invested in levushim, that it's not only changing the dark spaces of your nefesh habahami, it's changing your neshama. It's enhancing your neshama. It's refining your neshama. Obviously, the core of your neshama is chad with the Eibishter. But to bring that core out, that core is expressed in the koichos giluyim of the neshama, that transformation, the Rebbe is saying, can happen through levushim. Consistent application of beautiful levushim pulls out the beauty of your neshama and changes the neshama. Changes the working reality of the neshama. Changes the koichos of neshama changes the mahus of the neshama. That's what levushim can do. And the Rebbe connects this with a Maisa, probably it's a famous Maisa, you probably know, with the Alter Rebbe, that once someone came to the Alter Rebbe, I'm sure it happened more than once, there's actually two similar stories where the Alter Rebbe gave two different answers, so it must have happened at least twice, where a person said to the Alter Rebbe, your Hasidim, they're all fakers. Like, what are you encouraging your Hasidim to be such fakers for? They fake they're so holy. They fake they're balei nefesh. They fake they're so frum. They fake out they're davening for hours. What are they doing? They're fakers. Like, what are you encouraging your Hasidim? I mean, they're not holding like this at all. And the Alter Rebbe responded, well, it says that if a person fakes, he will not pass away from this world until it happens to him for real. In other words, implying, if now they're faking their davening and they keep consistently faking, they're not going to pass away until it happens. Now, it's very interesting because the source the Alter Rebbe is quoting is actually a very negative statement. What it's talking there about faking isn't someone faking he's holy and davens barichas. It's talking about people that fake they have a disability. Like, let's say a beggar for sympathy is faking he's blind or faking he's lame. So it says that if someone fakes this, they won't pass away before it happens to them for real. But as the Rebbe says in commenting on this story, we know that good is far more powerful than bad. So if it's true on the side of bad, that if someone fakes they have a disability, it's going to happen to them for real. If someone fakes they're frum and fakes their God-fear and fakes their bal nefesh and fakes that they daven for real, if you fake it enough, the psak is it's got to happen to you. So that's the Maisa with the Alter Rebbe. The Rebbe says, now we understand what that Maisa really means. It wasn't just a glib answer. Well, it says that if you fake something long enough, it's going to happen before you die. So, they're going to fake that they're frum, and they're going to fake that they're holy, and they're going to fake that they're godly. Okay, based on this psak, it's got to happen. No. There was a very real point the Alter Rebbe was saying in his answer. If you fake that you're godly, it's going to happen. If you fake that you're spiritual, it's going to happen. If you fake that you're a bal nefesh, that you have a refined soul, and therefore you take on extra chumras on yourself because of the sensitivity, it's going to happen. If you fake your davening, though you're really not, but you're pretending, it's going to happen. That was what the Alter Rebbe was saying. And that's an amazing thing. And then the Rebbe connects this. Sorry, I didn't see the time. I'll finish up quickly. The Rebbe connects this to the time when the Rebbe is saying this mimer, which is, it's HaMoed Sukkos. It's Shabbos HaMoed Sukkos. And the Rebbe said, and maybe we can all relate to this point, the Rebbe said, you know what? What are you supposed to do on HaMoed Sukkos? You're supposed to rejoice. Now, this was before Dancing All Night Simchas Beis HaShoeva. This was Tafshin Chafal of 1961. But you're still supposed to rejoice at Sukkos. And a person could say, rejoice. Do you know what's happened to me? Do you know what an oisvarf I am? I think I wasted the entire Elul. And then it became Chai Elul. And from Chai Elul to Rosh Hashanah, I think I wasted that also. And then Slichos passed me by, zip. And I think that went right over me. And even Rosh Hashanah. And then there's the week between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I did nothing. And Yom Kippur, I don't feel anything really accomplished. And then there's the 4 days between Yom Kippur and Sukkos. Forget that. And even the first days of Sukkos, I don't feel I did anything. And now I'm supposed to go out and rejoice? What do I have to be happy about? The Rebbe says, the levushim change the essence. Switch your whole thinking. It's Sukkos. Go out and rejoice. And that very joy itself will change what's going on inside. And there'll be what to rejoice from. And then the Rebbe concludes with a bracha, as the opening words of this Maimer were the verse, the famous Nevuah of Yeshaya, V'lo yikanaf od morecha, that by the time of Mashiach, we won't have these garments. We'll be past the garments. We won't need nothing to scrub inside, not neshama and not nefesh habahami. It'll all be so pure. It will all could be able to be revealed in all its beauty, because all that there will be beauty. And that's what we'll see by Mashiach. And until then, as we're waiting for the complete revelation of the scholars, we can take this mimer and use it for ourselves, use it for our children, use it for other people in our life. That last point. And what do I have to be happy about? Never says. Be happy. It's Sukkos. Be happy. And the more you're acting happy, there'll be a reason to be happy. The inside will change as well.